Hello everyone. Today's poem is 月下独酌四首其一 by Li Bai. So from the title, we know this poem was the first poem of 4 poems written in a row by Li Bai, the greatest poet in the Tang Dynasty. This poem is another very famous poem on wine drinking by Li Bai, and this is a very good comparison poem to his other poem on wine drinking. We had that on my video 将进酒. So you can compare these 2 poems, this one 月下独酌四首其一 with another poem by Li Bai 将进酒 to try to feel the difference between the 2 poems, the history background, the feelings that Li Bai tried to express. They are all different. This poem was written in the year 744 in the springtime. We can see it in the poem itself. So that's the time that Li Bai was just abandoned by the emperor, and he felt such a big sadness and sorrow when he was writing this poem. To have a better understanding of this poem, we should know how big sadness and sorrow that Li Bai had at that time. So it's quite hard for today's people to know why Li Bai feels such a big sorrow or sadness when the emperor abandoned him. So just think about that in the ancient China, or even in a lot of the ancient countries through the world. A specific person was born with a specific social positions. Let's say if the father was a noble people, the son is a noble. If the father was a peasant, the son was a peasant for sure. If the father was a merchant, the son was 100% a merchant. So in the Tang Dynasty, there's a big change to that social ladder or social rules, because since the Tang Dynasty, or precisely since the Sui Dynasty, the dynasty just ahead of the Tang Dynasty, the emperor started the imperial exams, which means your family used to be a peasant or merchant, but your son can get to the political structures by passing the imperial exam. So that's a huge change to the people for that time. So this gives the opportunity and ways for normal peoples who can involved with the political things or with the things of the central government. Before that, all the high-ranking officials or nobles, they are by their blood, not by their knowledge or their talent. So that's why all the Tang poets, they has such a great ambitions to go into the central government, to have the access to the emperors, because that's the first time in the Chinese history they have such an opportunity. With such understanding, we know that Li Bai had the same thoughts as other poets or other scholars. They want to get into the central government to serve the country with their talent. But Li Bai is quite unique because he is so proud a person, and he think he was the most talented person of the time, and he refused to go to the imperial exam. So he had to make his fame heard by the emperor, and thus the emperor can call him directly and get him into the central government. And finally, he made it when he was 40. And at that time, actually, he is almost forgot his dreams already, because we have another poem on that. 仰天大笑出门去，我辈岂是蓬蒿人. So that expressed he has a pride as always, but at that time he was looked by other people, or he was loved by other people. You are just normal people. You're not thought of the talent as you think. But finally, the emperor called Li Bai when he was 40. Anyhow, he may not have the talent of the political talent as he sought. And in the 3 years when he was serving the emperor, he has a lot of the he made a lot of the political enemies. Even he didn't do much of the actual works. The only thing the emperor asked him to do is to serve the emperor with his talent on writing poems. So whenever the emperor has a big party or some of the entertainment, he will call Li Bai into the royal palace and ask him to write a poem. Even with such, and with the extraordinary self-pride of Li Bai, he made a lot of the political enemies. And by the rumors, by his efforts of his political enemies, finally he was abandoned by the emperor. So you can imagine how Li Bai feels when he heard this news, when he was abandoned by the emperor. His lifelong dreams broke. In history book, when Li Bai arrived the royal palace for the first time upon the calling by the emperor get down off his car and walked toward Li Bai to welcome Li Bai, and then sent a big dinner dish for Li Bai to eat on the court of the royal palace. That's the first time, and that's the only time in the Chinese history that an emperor greets a normal person this way. During the 3 years of serving the emperor, Li Bai showed his pride as well in one of the poems by another greatest poet in Tang Dynasty, Du Fu. He wrote about Li Bai, 天子呼来不上船. So that poem basically is describing another drinking event, drinking parties, and 天子呼来不上船. So Li Bai was very high at the time. So when the emperor is calling him into the royal palace, and Li Bai refused to go to the royal palace, you can see how proud and how wild Li Bai he was. And even today, I said that Li Bai was abandoned by the emperor. That's the fact. But the very real story is the emperor gave Li Bai a big amount of gold and money and asked him to retire. So you can see even the emperor didn't like Li Bai anymore at that time, but he still take care of the pride of Li Bai and also pay a lot of the respect to Li Bai. Perhaps means the face is the most important thing for Chinese. That's a very old tradition. You can see here, even the emperor had to take care of the face, the means of others. Okay, the poem now. 月下独酌四首其一，李白。 花间一壶酒，独酌无相亲。举杯邀明月，对影长三人。月既不解饮，影徒随我身。暂伴月将影，行乐须及春。我歌月徘徊，我舞影零乱。醒时同交欢，醉后各分散。永结无情游，相期邈云汉。A very simple poem. The wording is very easily to be understood by today's people, the Chinese people. 月下独酌四首. The title means drinking wine under the moon. 酌 means drinking wine. And there's totally 4 poems written at this event, about this event. 花间一壶酒，独酌无相亲. So the first 2 sentences actually repeat the title again. Among the flowers, there's a kettle of wine. 独酌, I drink alone without a friend or relatives. 相亲 not only refers to the relatives, family members, as well as to the very close friends. So he's drinking alone among the flowers. 举杯邀明月，对影成三人。I raise my glass of wine to invite the bright moon. With the shadow facing the shadow, it make a group of 3 persons. So he treat the moon as the person. He invite the moon to drink together. And also the shadow by the moon. He treat the shadow as a person as well. So with the bright moon, with the shadow, his own shadow, and Li Bai himself, he imagined a drinking party of 3 persons. 月既不解饮，影徒随我身. The moon doesn't know how to drink wine, and the shadow of mine, follow my body, useless. So this sentence actually says he managed, try hard to find 2 companies to drink together, because the Chinese like to drink wines together, not alone. So that's the Chinese style. And he managed to find 2 other persons, but these 2 other persons, the moon, the shadow, is useless. 月既不解饮, the moon doesn't know how to drink wine. It doesn't mean the way to drink wines. It means it doesn't understanding the meaning of the wine drinking for Chinese. So in our previous video, 将进酒, I had said the drinking wine for Chinese basically is to express feelings, not for wine. It's for feeling expressions. So if you are very, very happy, you drink wine. If you feel so sad, you also drink wines. And normally you drink wines together with friends, with very close family members. Because if the happiness, when you drink wine together with people, the happiness doubled, tripled. If you feel very sad, you also drink wine with your friends, with your family members. The sadness became less and less when it was shared among your best friends and relatives. So that's the best part to drink wines together. That's the Chinese style of drinking means. And so here we can notice that Li Bai started to drinking alone, so he didn't try to share his sadness with anybody at the very beginning. But when he started to drink, the habits, or used to be, he is to try to find some people to drink together, because he always drink together, and he find the moon and the shadow, but they are useless so far. 暂伴月将影，行乐须及春. So in the previous sentences, Li Bai expressed the moon and the shadow is useless. And in this sentence, 暂伴月将影, for the moment, let me keep with the moon and the shadow, because he has no other choices. And also there's another big reason. 行乐须及春. 行乐, enjoy, make fun or entertainment. Because it's the springtime, we need to make the fun as soon as possible, otherwise the time passed. So here he gives two reasons why he still with the useless moon and shadow. Because first thing first, no other choice. The second thing is the best time of the season. Normally the spring for Chinese mean a startup. If you have a new initiative, if you have a big dream, the springtime means the time to start up and to cultivate the seeds in the earth. So that's the spring mean for the Chinese. From the history background, we know Li Bai is in a huge sadness at the moment, and also we know he's drinking in a very different situation. He's drinking alone. Normally he never did that. And also he said, let's drink for fun now. He's telling to his unhuman friends, let's have fun and let's take the time. Is Li Bai totally lost his mind, or is the world upside down? Let's see further. 我歌月徘徊，我舞影零乱. So I sing with the moon go back and forth. I dance with my shadow is disturbed and is in a mess. The shadow is in a mess. So here is a sort of the Hu Wen, and it means as I sing a song, as I dance, the moon and the shadow, they go back and forth, and also they are look the shape of disturbed or in a mess. 醒时同交欢，醉后各分散. So when I wake, 醒时, we share the happiness, we share the fun together. 同交欢, we share the fun, share the happiness. 醉后各分散. When I was drunk, we are parted, we don't know each other. So here actually is ironic. How can Li Bai to share his happiness, his joy with two other persons that's not a real person? One is the moon, the other is his shadow. When he's in conscious or he's wake up. So it's impossible actually. So this actually is with some of the Chinese philosophies. There's a story described that one man have a dream, and then he wake up, and when he wake up, he stay where he was before he went to sleep. Before he make the dreams, and he make the question: if the dream, the things happen in the dream, is the real life, or is the current life is the real life? It could be the other one is the real, or it could be both one is real life. It's hard to tell. Nobody knows. Though here, actually, Li Bai borrows some of the images from that Chinese ancient philosophy. In the real life of Li Bai, the moment he was in such a big sadness because he was abandoned by the emperor. His lifelong goal broke. And if we take the drunken status, also the situation described in this poem as the second life of Li Bai, his drinking with the unreal person, the moon, and the shadow of himself, and also with a lot of wines. Of course, he was drunken. So we have two lives of Li Bai. One is the real, and the other is described in this poem. By his wording, 醒时同交欢, in the fact, with a lot of wines, Li Bai, of course, he's drunken. He lost a lot of his consciousness, but he write it as a weak time. So that's the preference, and that's the preference he would like his second life to be the real life of himself, because in his second life there's no sadness. There's a lot of fun. He's sharing a lot of fun, happiness with his two friends, even they are not real person. So with the Chinese philosophy, it's not a big deal because it's hard to tell which is the real life. So just as you like. So Li Bai here employed this Chinese philosophy, and he tells two things. In his first life, or the real life, the sadness is such a huge sadness that nobody can bear it. Even he was the most outstanding people of the time, he cannot bear it as well. Neither. So with his own will, he preferred to be stayed in his second life, which means he's in a drunken status with his two unreal person friends. So that's the things Li Bai expressed with a very complicated, sophisticated writing skill and philosophies. 醒时同交欢. So here we can interpret this sentence as in fact he was drunken, but Li Bai liked to take this drunken status as he was awake. He was in his real life, because in this status he can forget his sadness, his huge sadness, and also he make friends with two unreal person, the moon and the shadow of himself. 最后各分散. So when get drunken, everybody get disconnected and parted. So here the drunken is described as drunken, and in the previous sentence it described as awake. Actually, they are all drunken, but in a different level. In the previous sentence, 醒时同交欢, the 醒时 means he has a lot of wines, but he has a lot of illusions and imaginations. And so he can drink with the moon, he can drink with the shadow of himself. And in this sentence, 最后各分散, this means the drunken is a much heavy level. They lost consciousness, they getting to sleep. That's normally the of course till today we Chinese said 醉了最后. Normally we mean someone lost his consciousness. It's just not have a lot of wines, very high. As far as he can stand there, he's not drunken. So that's the Chinese concept. So here, after they lost consciousness, they get disconnected and they looks like parted. That's the normal situation. So let's use the Chinese philosophy to analyze this sentence again and to see what it does really means by Li Bai. So in this sentence, 最后, the drunken word actually refers to the real life of Li Bai, because in the real life nobody takes moon and takes the shadow of himself as close friends. And second thing is, in the previous sentences, Li Bai has described the party with his unreal friends as the life preferred, and he preferred to think that life as his real life. So the other life should be a unreal life or less real life. So the not preferred life described in this poem as 最后 or drunken, or precisely lost consciousness. And in this not preferred life, the friends will be parted. So that's not good thing. And also, he didn't mention it, but everybody feels it. He has a huge sadness in that not preferred life. His lifelong dream in that life has broke. Wow, it's too complicated. I don't know if I make it clear to you, but anyhow, the thing is, with the Chinese philosophy, the dream, the real life, it looks like two lives. It has different stories in each of the lives, and the philosophy tells you it's hard to tell which is the real ones. So in this poem, Li Bai said there's two lives, and I prefer the life he preferred is to make friends with moons, with his own shadows, and they have party all the time. So basically, that's the poem, or that's the point Li Bai write about in this poem. 永结无情游，相期邈云汉. So let's make this feelingless, no feeling party or friendship forever. And let's make a date and expectations to meet each other on the Milky Way. So with understanding with the previous two sentences, the last two sentences are quite simple and obvious. Li Bai want to stay with this life, with moon and his own shadows, and never go back to the life with the emperors, or in normal sense, the real life. Also, he pointed out the preferred life is feelingless. There's no feelings because both of his friends, the moon and the shadow, has no feelings at all. So in this life, there could be no sadness at all. That's the place you want to go. At last, Li Bai made a wish, or made a date with his two friends. 相约邈云汉. Let's meet or let's date at the very far place at Yunhan. Yunhan is Milky Way. So we have another term. Normally today we call Milky Way as Yinghe, the river of silver. So the Greeks and the Chinese, we both noticed the astrology phenomenon, but we have the different names. But basically, Yinghe or Yunhan is always refers to the things in above in the heavens. The last two sentences actually made a promise, a date with his feelingless friends, the moon and the shadow of himself. Let's have the party. Let's tour around as close friends forever, and let's go above to the heavens, far away. So he made a big promise. He looked beyond normal world and looked far into the universe. This is a writing technique so-called 以景结情. So it let you move your focus point from the dining, the party, the wines away and look into the far away distance, the universe, into the Milky Ways, and that make the feelings last forever. So that's the writing technique, 以景结情, to use the scenario writing to ramp up the feelings. So basically, this poem is full of feelings. So it's lyric poems and with the ending of a scenario, the Milky Way, which also implies the thoughts of Li Bai himself. Let's go to the Milky Way and never stayed in the life of the emperors or with the career things. I will always stay with my other two friends, the moon, the shadow, and let's go to the heaven together. Okay, that's for today. Another masterpiece writing about drinking wines. So drinking wines is a big deal in China, even today. Remember that if you come to China. Bye-bye.